One shot, one kill, the VLE commander muttered, his tendrils quivering in dismay. How can any species be so precise? On the barren planet of Crux, for under the dim light of 3 distant stars, the coalition of free species huddled together in a war council. The war had been progressing well until the humans joined the fray, and now a new nightmare haunted the coalition's ranks. The human sniper. Perhaps we underestimated them. The Tauran general, a towering mass of hardened scales, grumbled, his voice rumbling like distant thunder, carrying the weight of every defeat his forces had suffered at the hands of these mysterious human marksmen. Underestimated. The VLE commander's voice was almost a hiss, his slit-pupil eyes narrowing. We didn't understand them at all. What kind of soldier kills from such a distance? It's dishonorable. Another alien, smaller in stature, but with eyes that flickered like a dying star, interjected. It's not just the distance. They kill without warning, without a chance for us to even see them. By the time we know where they are, it's too late. A murmur of agreement swept through the council. The room, filled with beings of various shapes and sizes, bore the scars of recent conflicts. None could claim to have seen a human sniper and lived to tell the tale. Their only knowledge came from the aftermath. Comrades dropped in their tracks, casualties counted in seconds. We need to do something, the Tauran general insisted, slamming a fist down onto the metal table. The force of the impact made the holographic map of the battlefield flicker. We can't continue to fight an enemy we can't see. Perhaps a cold, mechanical voice cut through the murmurs. It belonged to an artificial intelligence unit, sleek and angular, floating above the group. Perhaps it is not the humans we should fear, but their methods. The room fell silent, all eyes and sensory organs turning toward the AI. It had been a silent observer until now, its input often seen as too clinical, too detached from the organic realities of war. But now, in the face of an unseen enemy, its insight was sought. They have adapted to a form of warfare that prioritizes efficiency over engagement, the AI continued. For humans, victory is not about the battle, but about the elimination of the target. They are predators, hunters, who take pride in their ability to end life with minimal effort. The word predator hung in the air, its implications clear. In the wilds of many worlds, predators are the most feared creatures, beings that can kill without hesitation, without remorse. For the first time, the coalition realized they were not fighting a traditional army. They were facing hunters, and they were the prey. Then how do we fight back? The VLE commander's voice was almost desperate, his usual confidence shaken. How do we stop them? We can't fight them the way we've fought others. We need to change our approach, the AI responded. We must become unpredictable, force them into situations where their precision is meaningless. We need to find a way to draw them out, expose them to our strengths. Or, a voice from the back of the room suggested, we could lure them into traps, make them think they have the advantage, then strike when they least expect it. The idea sparked a discussion, strategies and counter-strategies flying back and forth. But as the council debated, one thing became increasingly clear. The humans had already won in one respect. They had instilled fear. A fear that now threatened to paralyze the coalition's efforts. Meanwhile, far from the war council, high on a ridge overlooking the battlefield, a lone figure lay prone, his body camouflaged against the rocky terrain. Through the scope of his rifle, he watched the movements of the enemy below. They were setting up defensive positions, their movements hurried and erratic. They knew he was out here somewhere, but they had no idea where. A slow, deliberate breath. The sniper's finger tightened on the trigger. Not enough to fire, but just enough to feel the cool metal under his skin. His heart rate was steady, his mind clear. He was in no rush. Patience was the key. He could wait for hours, days even, for the perfect shot. And when it came, he would take it with no more thought than one might give to swatting a fly. For now, he waited, watched, and listened. He was just one of many scattered across the landscape, each one a ghost in the machine of war. No one knew his name, and no one ever would. His existence was defined by a simple creed: see without being seen, kill without being killed. Back at the War Council, the discussions were growing more heated. The coalition leaders were desperate, grasping at any strategy that might give them an edge. But deep down, they all knew the truth. They were facing an enemy they didn't understand, one that seemed to defy all the rules of engagement they had known. And on the ridge, the sniper waited, his eyes never leaving the battlefield below. He had all the time in the world, and when the moment came, he would strike, and another enemy of humanity would fall, wondering in their final moments why they had ever dared to face such a foe. Another one bites the dust, the sniper muttered as he observed the aftermath through his scope. The alien soldier crumpled to the ground, lifeless. The other scrambled in panic. He knew the effect this would have on them. More paranoia, more fear. They were already terrified, and it showed in every jerky movement, every cautious step they took. He didn't need to hear their panic chatter to understand. It was the same in every battle. The coalition forces were unraveling, their confidence eroding with each shot. A single sniper could decimate their morale, and there were dozens of snipers just like him across the planet, all with the same mission: to sow fear and confusion. Down below, the coalition troops were in disarray. Their commanders were barking orders, trying to restore some semblance of order, but it was clear that fear had taken root. The Tauran general, the one the sniper had been watching for the past hour, seemed especially tense. His heavy frame moved with uncharacteristic haste, his eyes darting from side to side as if expecting death to come from every shadow. The sniper knew that feeling well. He had seen it before in countless engagements, in soldiers far more disciplined than these. It was a universal truth in war. Fear was the greatest enemy. And right now, the coalition was drowning in it. Moving to a new position, the sniper whispered to himself, fading into the shadows, just as invisible as the terror that gripped his prey. Whispered into his comms, his voice barely audible over the wind that swept across the ridge. There was no need for a reply. His spotter, hidden somewhere in the rocks behind him, would receive the message. Together, they had a silent understanding, a partnership forged in the heat of countless battles. Words weren't necessary. Each knew the other's next move without asking. Carefully, the sniper began to crawl backward, his movements slow and deliberate. Every inch of ground was painstakingly covered, avoiding any sudden motions that might give away his position. He had been in that spot for hours, and now it was time to relocate. A good sniper never stayed in one place too long. To do so was to invite death. As he moved, he couldn't help but reflect on the coalition's efforts to counter them. Traps had been set, ambushes laid, but none of it mattered. The snipers were always a step ahead, always one shot away from turning the tide. The enemy was learning, adapting, but it was a slow process, and every mistake they made was costly. The sniper reached a small depression in the ground, barely large enough to conceal a person. He settled into it, adjusting his camouflage to blend with the surroundings. From this new vantage point, he had a clear view of a different section of the battlefield. The coalition forces were fortifying their positions, setting up makeshift barriers, and deploying automated defenses. It was a futile effort, but he understood why they did it. In war, even the illusion of safety was better than none. His rifle was already in position, the scope trained on a cluster of alien soldiers near a damaged transport. They were busy repairing it, oblivious to the death that watched from above. The sniper exhaled slowly, calming his mind, focusing only on the target. This was the moment he lived for, the brief instant where everything else faded away and there was only him, the rifle, and the enemy. But something caught his eye, a flash of movement in the distance, too quick to be one of the coalition's clumsy maneuvers. He shifted his aim slightly, scanning the horizon. There, among the rocks, he saw them, a group of figures moving with precision, unlike the panicked soldiers below. They were advancing quietly, using the terrain for cover, their weapons at the ready. These weren't ordinary troops. They were something else, something more dangerous. The sniper's instincts flared. These were hunters, sent to take him out. He hadn't anticipated this. The coalition had finally realized they couldn't win by conventional means, so they had sent their best, their elite, to hunt down the human snipers. It was a bold move, and if he were anyone else, he might have admired the strategy. But admiration had no place on the battlefield, and he knew what he had to do. His finger rested lightly on the trigger, waiting. He had no doubt they would find him eventually. He was good, but so were they. This wasn't the first time he'd been hunted, and it wouldn't be the last. The trick was to turn the tables before they closed in. He watched them through the scope, counting their numbers, studying their formation. There were 6 of them, heavily armored, moving with the coordination of a seasoned unit. They spread out as they approached, covering each other's blind spots, careful not to expose themselves to any potential sniper fire. It was a textbook maneuver, one he might have taught himself in another life. They were close now, too close to miss. The sniper calculated the angles, the timing, the order in which he would take them out. He could do it. He knew he could, but would require perfect execution, and even then, there was no guarantee he'd get them all before they closed in on his position. His breathing slowed, his heartbeat steady. He was ready. This was what he had trained for, what he had been made for. There was no fear, no hesitation, only the certainty that he would strike first. And as he focused on the lead hunter, already picturing the shot in his mind, he felt a grim satisfaction. They hated him, all of them, because they knew that in the game of death, he always played to win. The lead hunter moved cautiously, his every step calculated. The sniper could see the intent in his movements, the cold determination to close the distance and eliminate the threat. It was a dance of death, one the sniper had seen many times before. He had survived each one, but this time, he knew the odds were different. They were prepared, trained for this very scenario, and they were coming for him. He let his breathing settle, becoming one with the ground beneath him. Every muscle in his body was relaxed, every sense sharpened. He was aware of everything, the way the wind brushed against the rocks, the distant hum of the battlefield, the scent of metal and earth. It was all information, all data he could use. His crosshairs rested on the lead hunter's visor, the faint reflection of the sun glinting off it. The sniper could take the shot now, drop the leader and throw the others into disarray. But something held him back. This wasn't just about survival. It was about making a statement. He needed to show them why humans were feared, why they were hunted across the galaxy. He waited, watching as the hunters advanced, their formation tightening as they closed in. They were confident, but not overconfident. They knew their prey was dangerous, but they had no idea just how dangerous. That was their mistake. At the last possible moment, when the lead hunter was almost upon him, the sniper pulled the trigger. The sound was barely more than a whisper, but the impact was immediate. The lead hunter's head snapped back, the visor shattering as the high-velocity round punched through it. He dropped instantly, his body collapsing like a marionette with its strings cut. Before the others could react, the sniper had already shifted his aim. The second shot took out the hunter on the left, a precise hit to the chest plate where the armor was weakest. The third hunter went down a split second later, the round finding the gap between his helmet and shoulder guard. Panic rippled through the remaining hunters. They had been trained to face the worst, but this was beyond their expectations. They had never encountered a sniper like this, one who could kill so quickly, so efficiently. They scrambled for cover, but it was too late. The sniper was already on the move, shifting positions and using the terrain to his advantage. He knew they would be communicating, trying to triangulate his position, but he was always one step ahead. As they converged on where they thought he was, he picked off the fourth hunter with a clean shot to the back of the neck. The fifth hunter, realizing the danger, broke formation and tried to retreat, but the sniper anticipated the move. The fifth shot took him in the lower back, severing his spine. Now there was only one left. The sixth hunter was hiding behind a rock, his breathing heavy, his hands shaking. He was no longer the predator. He was the prey, and he knew it. The sniper could feel his fear, taste it in the air. It was intoxicating. For a moment, the sniper considered letting him go, leaving one survivor to spread the tale of what had happened here. But he dismissed the thought as quickly as it came. This was war, and in war, there were no survivors, only the dead and those who lived to kill again. He lined up the shot, took a deep breath, and squeezed the trigger. The last hunter never saw it coming. The round struck him between the eyes, his body crumpling to the ground in a final, futile attempt to escape. It was over. The sniper remained still, listening for any signs of movement, any indication that there might be more. But there was nothing. The battlefield was silent. The only sound the distant echo of artillery fire from another part of the planet. Slowly, carefully, the sniper stood up, stretching his stiff muscles. He surveyed the scene below him, the bodies of the fallen hunters scattered across the rocks. They had been the best the coalition had to offer, and they had fallen just as easily as the rest. The message was clear. Human snipers were a force unlike any other, and to face them was to court death. He shouldered his rifle and began to move, blending into the terrain as he made his way to the extraction point. The battle was far from over, but he had done his part. The coalition would think twice before sending more hunters after him or his comrades. They would fear the shadows, the unseen threat that could strike from anywhere at any time. As he walked, the sniper allowed himself a rare moment of satisfaction. He was a ghost, a whisper on the wind, and his enemies would remember him long after he was gone. They would speak of the human snipers in hushed tones, their hatred born of fear, and they would wonder how such a small, fragile species could produce warriors so deadly. But the sniper knew the truth. It wasn't about strength or size. It was about precision, about the will to survive at any cost. And as long as there were enemies to fight, he would be there, in the shadows, watching, waiting, and ready to take the shot.